I was the best driver that I knew. And when I was driving toy cars and wire cars, they all confirmed it. I was born a natural driver. Very good at negotiating terms and everything. As I practiced my skills around the house, everything was confirming I'm the man. When I talk about driving, you talk about me. Yes, that's how I perceived it. Just like my favorite cartoon, Voltron, at that time. I could drive my way out of danger. I was born a driver. Whatever the situation is, I managed to navigate myself. It seemed like nobody else recognized this gift and talent in me, you know? Until between ages 6 and 7. Between ages 6 and 7, my dad gave me the car keys and asked me to take the car out of the garage. Njabulo, he called out, "Here are the car keys. Take the car out of the garage and clean it." Finally, the moment had come when somebody recognized my driving skills. That I had it. Not only Voltron was confirming it, but hey, now live. There were the car keys, and there was the opportunity to drive. Not just start by driving forward, but the request was for me to reverse the car. Get it out of the garage. I mean, who starts you off with reverse? But because I was born a driver, I fully realized that my dad had a certain level of discernment. He's realized that, yes, I can do it. He was my kind of a guy at that moment. Total confidence in me. So I took the keys with the biggest smile on my face. This was the day that the Lord had made. I was going to rejoice in it. Made my way to the garage thinking highly of myself and all my achievements as a 6 to 7 year old between that time. And I wasn't just the only boy in this family for no reason. And the girls were going to see it on that day, that Njabu is the man. 5 girls, 1 boy, the last born, they were going to see that I'm the man. And so I opened the garage, made sure it was secure, the doors were secure, opened the car, sat in there, adjusted the seats, you know, my short little legs, trying to reach out to the pedals, but I made sure everything, as far as I would see my daddy do it, was all okay. Voltron was about to show the world how to reverse at 6 years old. So I thought. And there before me was a white Datsun 120Y. It was only about 2 years old. Dad had got it from new. And it was calling out to me to say, "You're the man, you're the man." Everything was confirming, reverse me. Turned the key, and soon I heard that familiar vroom vroom sound, the best sound. And I moved towards the pedal. I love the vroom vroom pedal. As a boy, it was the best pedal, because that's the one that just gives you the sound of the vehicle. So, vroom, vroom, I was the driver. It was a good feeling. A very good feeling. So I positioned my short self, and as I was getting ready for my first live maneuver of a real car, just as I was trying to remember if I should, let down the handbrake first, or should I first put the car in reverse and then vroom vroom, pedal. Just then I was shocked to see my dad's half-shaven, angry face charging towards me. What's wrong right now? Because this is the man who just gave me the keys. I couldn't understand. The one man who believed in me a few minutes ago and trusted me with his keys and put them in my hands had now come out in his boxers. That never happened for my dad. And there he was asking me that weird question, what do you think you're doing? I don't think I'm doing, I know what I'm doing. I'm about to reverse your car as you asked me to take the car out of the garage and clean it. Well, what happened thereafter is not very important for the investigation. But all I can tell you is that it wasn't quite nice. My bubble was burst. And Dad was looking very angry. It turns out all my dad wanted me to do was to simply unlock the car, open the garage, put down the handbrake, the car would just roll back outside on its own, and then put the handbrake up again and clean the car. That's all he wanted. But when I saw the keys, heard the instruction, it connected with something that internally I had convinced myself that I was born a driver. And the two kissed, and what else needs to happen thereafter? I need to just drive. Dad is giving me the keys, so I jumped into that very sad conclusion. This is what I need to do. This is how I am to do it. You see, we are living on the brink of eternity. I believe that. Matthew will give you a good telling off if you don't. Luke 21 will be on your case if you don't realize the signs around us are showing us that we are living on the brink of eternity. Eternity starts when natural disasters take you away, or when probation closes. When you sadly pass away, that's eternity right there, starting for you, or should be. Either way, we are about to enter into the heavenly Canaan. So we do well to learn from the challenges of Exodus and journeying to Canaan that we read about this morning in Exodus chapter 2. At the borders of eternity, we will be exposed to a remarkable level of self-deception. The enemy's trick to make us trust in our childlike natural instincts would be visiting us with an intensity that has never been told before. When we trust in our childlike natural instincts. You are special, Moses was told. His father, Amram, and his mom, Jochebed, were just there. They say, oh, you are special, Moses. You are not just a child. You know, if you read this account, if you read the description for Moses' parents in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 23, the NIV says they saw that Moses was no ordinary child. The New Living Translation says they saw that God had given them an unusual child. And yet when you read it from the ESV, the Revised Standard Version, the child was beautiful, it says. If you read it from the King James Version, it says he was a proper child. He was a proper child. But nobody told Moses what being an unusual, a beautiful, and a proper child should look like when you see an Egyptian humiliating and beating your fellow countryman. Nobody had told Moses that. His Egypt-like ways of behaving took over. I'm sure Moses was wishing his mom would have been there. Moses was hoping his dad's voice that had taught him as a little boy before he left for Pharaoh's court would guide him. The same voice that taught him over and over that you are not an Egyptian. You are an Israelite. You are not Pharaoh's grandson. You are a miracle baby that survived in a basket on the river Nile because of God's grace. That voice that had assured him of his destiny. He was hoping that voice would once again come and tell him what to do when he's facing the Egyptian who is humiliating and beating his fellow countryman. You survived Pharaoh's hurricane that commanded that everybody, every boy that is born to the Hebrews be thrown into the river Nile. You survived it, Moses. You are not an easygoing child. You are not the same child with everybody else. You are a special child. We find this Pharaoh's command in Exodus 1 verse 23 that says, throw all the boys into the river Nile. Moses was told that he had made it. He was a survivor. And I suspect Moses missed that voice at that moment when he saw his fellow Israelites being ill-treated. You see, some of us can't even watch just one episode of Roots or Amazing Grace or any of the slave trade films without beginning to kill someone. No, the Bible says when you hate somebody with great intensity, you're as good as committing murder. And there is Moses watching his own Israelite fellow brothers being embarrassed, being humiliated, and being abused. And what was Moses to do? I'm sure Moses felt powerless. He felt that he was useless at that particular point. But feeling powerless and feeling useless were not feelings that were encouraged in Egypt. In Egypt, you had to have a bravado of some sort. Be the man, man up. Take situations as a man. Stand boldly, be cruel. That's what Pharaoh was teaching the Egyptians to do to the Israelites. Be cruel to them. Give them extra labor. Chapter 1 will tell us of Exodus. And so there was a conflict here of which voice does Moses listen to. In Egypt, you had to believe in yourself, never show any weakness. You were to be heartless at times and cruel at times. That's what made them the non-world power at that particular point in time. Moses had heard his mom's voice that had taught him to obey God. He heard about the naughty Cain killing Abel. He heard how Cain had brought the beetroot, the red onions, and the red cabbage onto the altar instead of bringing a blood sacrifice. But what does obeying God look like? What does it look like? After all, Moses was convinced beyond doubt that God wanted to use him to do a great and wonderful job in leading his people, God's people, out of Egypt. There were too many voices. And we come to verse 12. So turn back to Exodus and let's go to chapter 2. And verse 12 will say, Moses looked to the left, he looked this way, and he looked that way, and the coast was clear. The coast was clear. And when the coast was clear, he murdered, he killed, he dispatched the Egyptian. He killed him. It's been a while feeling powerless and useless. Those were feelings that were not encouraged in Egypt, so he killed him. He was raised in the house of Pharaoh to be a conqueror, a world power, contributing to that. He killed him. The coast was clear. The simple lesson that we would like to share today is when the coast is clear. When the coast is clear, make it a habit to always look up. Moses looked to the left for mommy, maybe for uncle, maybe for grandma. He looked to the right for dad, maybe for auntie, and maybe for granddad. He looked to the people, the eyes of the people, and he forgot to look up. To ask God, how shall I do this? feeling powerless and not knowing what to do. Moses had not learned to make it a habit to be more concerned about what God thinks of a situation than what man think of a situation. Look up to Jesus, the Lamb of God, is the call. In Moses' zeal to obey God's voice, he made many mistakes. I mean, what is the color of obedience? What's the shape of obedience? How does obedience look like in halls of residence at a public university? What shape does it take? When there's no mommy, there's no daddy. Mommy's here today, but hey. Is it this evening or tomorrow, Mom, you're going back? Sorry?
Today.
Today. Let's just say today. And you're alone, Amanda. The coast is clear. The coast is clear. And when Moses looked to the left, he looked to the right, and there was no one there. And he forgot to look up and he killed the Egyptian. Maybe you're at school and maybe you're at work and the coast gets clear. It affects all of us. We say the coast is clear, by the way, when we cannot see any danger around us. The saying, the coast is clear, when there is no danger that is around us and we perceive that there is no danger. In life, we feel powerless in many situations, like the Egyptian is beating his fellow Israelite. You will feel powerless in many situations where you think, I can't, and the enemy is saying, you can't do this. You can't do this. Look, the coast is clear. And you are bored. And that's where the enemy starts using all the voices of the things that you have been occupying your mind with. He starts using the very voices. They seemed silent when they were in Hollywood on TV, but now they're speaking to you and they're telling you what to do. Because Voltron has told you that you're the best driver. You think, wow, I can do this. I'm invincible. Then you realize that, no, not so. See, the enemy loves it when we feel powerless and we're out of control and we feel like we are falling. That's when he offers us that false sense of security. He offers us Egypt's ruthless approaches. That bravado. That's the point where you think, no, I won't be seen as a weakling. No way. Nah, I need to man up here. The coast is clear. I need to do something, act like I know what I'm doing, have a self-given confidence. I can do this. That's when Hollywood's subtle feelings of being unconquerable take over. And you become the Braveheart himself. You become the Superman. Nobody's followed you from your homeland. There's no one who's come with you from home to school. And the coast is clear. When you look to the left, you cannot see the pastor, the elder is not on your right. The coast is clear. And you forget to look out to inquire, Lord, how shall I live a Christ-like life in university? How shall I be a representative of yours in my place of work? When there is nobody who will put me to account for the way I am behaving. Acts chapter 7, verse 25 tells us that Moses thought that his own people would realize that God was using him to rescue them, but they didn't. You see, Ellen White will explain this a little further. She puts it beautifully to explain the whole picture, explaining it by saying Moses expected to free the Israelites by warfare. He expected that this would be conquered through fighting, and he began the first battle right there. And he thought this is the way it should be done. But it wasn't. It was to be, they were to overcome by the blood of the Lamb. So when they finally leave Egypt, guess what? The very last thing they do is the Passover. They are overcoming. Simply those where the angel passed over had to have that Passover lamb, the blood of the Passover lamb on their doorposts. They were to overcome by a weak form, but it was to give them their strength. The weakness of just looking up was to give them their strength. It took Moses 40 years to unlearn the voices of Egypt, where he was herding sheep. Moses was to learn that feeling powerless and useless needed to be replaced. But replaced by what? By feeling a bravado or self-developed confidence? No. By pretended strength? No. Being tough and cruel and heartless? No. They overcame by the blood of the Lamb. A relationship with the blood of the Lamb. I mean, the Lamb? Or maybe it was meant to be overcome by the blood of the lion? No. They overcome by this weak form. They are moving from weakness to another weakness. But God's foolishness is wiser than man. And His strength is made perfect in our weakness. Not when it is the bravado. No. What can a lamb do for me in a cruel and heartless world? One author put it this way, as we close. Maybe this is more to parents. It's not our job to toughen our children up to face a cruel and heartless world. It's not our job to toughen up our children to face a cruel and heartless world. It's our job to raise children who will make the world a little less cruel and heartless. Our job is to raise children who will make the world a little less cruel and heartless. When you toughen them up to face a cruel and hard world, they sometimes don't know when they face the love of Jesus, because they just want to face tough situations and overcome them. They don't know what to do with God's love that forgives them. They don't know what to do with the Lamb, because they're tough. You know, anything weak is... That's a quotation from L.R. Nost. That's what the Lamb of God did. He came in human form, weakness, in order to save us. Who would have thought that a lamb would rescue the souls of man? A lamb, really? But that's the lamb that we are called to look up to. Keep your eyes on Jesus. When finally God delivered the Israelites, it was the lamb that came and kicked in. And my prayer is, when you look to the left and look to the right and you don't see anything, you will look up and see the Lamb. In your place of work, study, you will see the Lamb. Seek the Lamb. Have a relationship with Him. And ask Him how you are to deal with the situations that you will face. Before you try and act like you know what you're doing, before you try and psych up some confidence that you really don't have, seek the Lamb. Make it a habit of looking up to the Lamb, because that's where your safety is. And that's what communion is about. Now and again, we are reminded that we really need to look at the Lamb, for in His weakness, and what is His seeming weakness, is our only strength. Amen.